Thank you. I would like to start by thanking Secured World Foundation for inviting me here today to give a brief overview of the ESPI Act. Let's see. Okay, so today will be really, as I was mentioning, an overview of the ESPI Act from a governance, harmonization, regulatory, and global reach perspective. Already yesterday, we have touched upon a few aspects related to the technical requirement, but I would like to really do a step back and give you like a challenge that look at the policy dimension of it. Just that you know, I'm Sara Dalledonne. I'm the lead on EU-relation and regulatory affairs at the European Space Policy Institute. ESPI is a think tank fully dedicated to space. We are based in Vienna. We work with a general assembly of different type of organization, international organization, national space agency, industry, and we are supported by an advisory council of distinguished experts around the world. To start with, we have recently published a document, an ESPI brief, just last week. You can scan the QR code and get access to the report. But to start this analysis with you today, what I would really like to do is starting with what we know about the ESPI Act. So what we know is actually the fact that the ESPI Act is as a reasoning and mandate of the European Commission based on Article 114. So it's really looking at the coherence of the internal market. Even though with some opposition of some member states were more going into the directive in terms of tool that will be used, the Act is indeed a regulation. In terms of time frame, we are looking into a regulation that will be entering into force in 2030 with a 2 years in transition, and we will see how this will have an impact in many different considerations, also related to the type of commercial mega constellation that will be deployed in the coming years. In terms of scope, this will apply not only to EU operators, but also to non-EU operators. And this is why it could be interesting for the, let's say, international community that's present here today. In terms of scope, here we are talking about quite a large scope, looking into satellite operator, collision avoidance providers, space-based data providers, entities related to launchers, spaceport, and so on. So the scope of the Act is quite large. And then it will not go into what is the exclusive competence of the member states, so aspects related to responsibility, liability, insurance, lending rights. So what's that? If we go to the next slide and we go really into looking at what's ambition and what are the challenges behind that, we see that the ESPI Act will include a multi-layer governance, where what we have is really a situation where you will get an authorization that will only be present in the member state where you apply for, but will also be extended to different other member states within the EU context. This is based, as I was mentioning, by the coherence of the internal market, meaning that when we look at the preamble of the ESPI Act, this disjointed ecosystem, regulatory ecosystem with different national space law, we actually have 14 EU space law, national space law within the EU context, can create some bureaucracy, red tape, and many other aspects of this type. Even though when we look at the literature, the hard evidence of such a fragmentation is not really present, and there is almost what is called a de facto harmonization. That's remained the baseline for the Act. And here it's really interesting to see what will be the plus and the cons and who will benefit in terms of industry and member state from such Act. In terms of challenges from a policy dimension, what is interesting to mention are really related to a few aspects. Definitely the aspect related to the supervision and the investigation power of the European Commission and the agency, which of course will bring some challenges related to the legal and sovereignty basis for that. There is also an aspect related to the enforceability. So the fact that the extraterritoriality of the EU Space Act will also lead to potentially seeing the EU operator or the EU companies being the vehicle for the implementation of this extraterritoriality, which of course will create some challenges for the level playing field. And finally, the use of the mutual recognition, which will also challenge the level playing field in terms of how extended this type of tool within the Act will be used. If we look at that then from the technical requirements, so looking more at the challenges related to safety, sustainability, and resilience, we see that definitely the Act will have to leverage the technical expertise of the member state, as well as, of course, the technical expertise, for instance, of the European Space Agency, especially when mentioning the Act when looking at standardization process. When looking at the technical requirement, we can already see that there are some discrepancies that will have to be taken into account, especially when looking at the technical requirements that are implemented within the EU context for own public program within the EU or for EU operators in comparison with those that will be applied to third parties. Another important question is, of course, related to the cost. Of course, there is an impact assessment saying that will be a 10% increase for manufacturing. The industry is already mentioning that this cost will be higher. And this, of course, needs to be matched against the profitability challenge we see for the European industry at the current status. Other type of challenges will, of course, be related to, let's say, other technical requirement in terms of what could be, let's say, the forum shopping possibility. So the fact that some EU companies might decide to then move to other countries to avoid, to have to comply and use the regulatory process that will be implemented by the EU Space Act. On a positive note, of course, those technical requirements might also lead to the extension of markets, such as the aspect related to in-orbit servicing or requirement related to trackability, maneuverability, or collision avoidance can also lead to other aspects for what is the use of services for SST. To conclude, what we see is actually an act that already shows an increased ambition from the EU level on the strategic role in space. Of course, also mentioning the link between the space policy and other key target policies within the Green Deal, energy transition, and many others. In terms of timeline, as I was mentioning, this is 2030 plus 2 years transition, which already put a challenge in terms of the fact that in that context, many commercial constellations will be already deployed. So we need to really question ourselves who will be really impacted by this act. The reality check will also have to be done when looking at the implementing act, comitology, as well as what is going to be the regulatory culture that will be surrounding this act. So it's really difficult to foresee in this sense. And to conclude, of course, what is important, and I think it's relevant in the act, is not only what we see as in terms of challenges, the cohesion of the internal market, but also looking at the role of Europe to lead globally in certain areas, including in aspects related to space safety, sustainability, etc. But of course, this is not only related to the possibility to shape norms in an international context, but really to found that with programmatic development, a mature industrial base, as well as proper funding. And in this sense, the aspect related to the negotiation of the next MFF will be pivotal. I conclude by saying, by using like one of the mantra we have at ESPI in the recent years, let's say, which is it takes a village. Usually when we use this terminology, always look at the fragmentation that we have in Europe and the fact that whatever we want to do, of course, need to be matched with the fragmentation and quite complex governance. But it's in this context, I think it works really well at an international level as well, where aspects related to security, to safety and sustainability could only be tackled when really we have all the entities and the bodies working together for the benefit of the space environment and for really the most efficient use of it. I will stop here. I thank you all for the attention, and I remain available for any question you might have. Thanks.